This is the BBC.
Hello, I'm James Kamarasamy. Thank you for downloading the BBC's World Tonight podcast for Friday, the 31st of January. In this extended edition of the programme, we count down to the moment when the UK officially ends its membership of the European Union. Tonight with James Kamarasamy. Beyond Britain's diplomatic discussions, how will the British people's relationship with Europe change after Brexit? Will we still feel as close to the European mainland and to its people and culture? Well, the World Tonight's Paul Moss is in the closest point that mainland Europe has to Britain, the French town of Calais, and he joins us now. So, Paul, is Brexit Day being marked there?
Well, in some ways, Jamie, but, Brexit is going to be a bit of an anticlimax here. Nothing will actually change in Calais and its huge port tomorrow. For as long as the transition period lasts, commerce can continue here as before, but at the same time, everyone here knows that once that transition period ends, it could mean major upheaval in terms of customs, immigration, and the kind of cross-border cooperation which has always gone on here under the EU's auspices. So, yes, not surprisingly, Brexit is certainly on the front page of the local newspapers. I've got here Le Voix du Nord. It simply says Jour de Brexit, Day of Brexit, and Nord Littoral under the headline Divorce, Brexit, Le changement n'est pas maintenant, Brexit. The change is not now. Now, yet one thing that Brexit supporters have often said is that they may be anti-European Union, but they're not anti-Europe. Indeed, some leavers chose to emphasise their love of all things European, the food, the tourist destinations and so on. Yet others insist there is a risk that Britain will end up more distant from Europe itself after Brexit, even if indeed people ever did see themselves as really European in the first place. I've been canvassing opinion on this on both sides of the channel. I came to Calais today, but started just across the water from here in what is Calais' twin town in Britain, Dover. They had literally been putting up the bunting when I dropped in on the Cricketers, a pub on the outskirts of Dover, where they're holding a huge celebration to mark Britain leaving the European Union. Union Jacks have been placed all over, on the windows, on the bar, under the bar. Lorraine Corrigan and Ali Kennedy are among those getting ready to party.
I'm really looking forward to 11 o'clock when we escape the EU. It's been a long time coming, and I imagine someone will have a recorded bing bong of Big Ben going off at 11 o'clock as well. Well, I hope so.
Are you a European? If I said to you, are you European?
No, I'm English and I'm British. I'm not European.
So what continent do you live in?
I don't live in a continent, I live in England, and Britain, and it's an island. It's a lovely little island.
I love Europe. I've got my daughter who lives in France, and I'll go and visit her. I've got my sister who lives in Switzerland. I'll go and visit her.
So if I was to say to you, are you a European, what would you say?
No, I'm not a European. No, I'm Scottish.
But you could be Scottish and European.
Well, I'm not European.
You live here in Dover?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Why do you think Dover was so strongly anti-EU in the vote?
Because it's the closest to Europe, I suppose.
And this is the very embodiment of that closeness to the European mainland. I'm standing facing the white cliffs of Dover. You can actually see them from France on a good day. But these cliffs are being caught up in a row over Brexit Day and how to mark it. The local Conservative MP wanted to drape a banner across the cliffs saying, "We love the UK." And when I caught up with a local pro-Remain activist, he was planning to project a pro-EU video on the cliff face.
My name's Alex Lister. The idea of the projection is to send a really clear message to people in Europe. We are not an inward-looking nation. Leaving the EU is going to inevitably change our sense of identity. We could easily slip into a trap of becoming Little Englanders who forget that there's a world just a few miles away from us.
You understand one place Alex gets his Europhile tendencies from when you get to meet his grandmother. Over a cup of tea in a local seafront cafe, Marjorie Wheaton told me how she'd been influenced by the experience of the Second World War. Now, 96 years old, Marjorie served as an army nurse.
I was in a military hospital. Soldiers came and went, soldiers came and went. People were getting bad news all the time. And people down here who lived in Dover, no one knew for certain whether the Germans were going to be lucky and were going to be able to land. And after the war, I think all Europe had gone through this terrible, terrible thing. A lot of people realise that we must be united.
We're sitting here looking out over the channel. It's a bit of a foggy day. You can't see France, but it's out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, well, just because we're out of the EU, we'll still be as close to that continent just across the water there.
Physically, yeah. Yeah, we are physically close to them, but this country has to be together in Europe, in a bloc.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous prions tous les conducteurs et leurs passagers de bien vouloir rejoindre leur véhicule.
Well, this is what actually links Dover with mainland Europe. I'm on the cross-channel ferry now, bound for Calais. And I think this journey does still have a certain romance, the lowering of the gangplank, the seagulls which you may be able to hear escorting us, and then France looming out over the horizon. Bonjour. Passengers don't normally get a personal greeting from the chairman of Calais Harbour. But then this wasn't exactly a normal day. With Brexit just hours away, Jean-Marc Puississeau wanted to tell me that his relationship with Britain would not change. He would retain a love of all things British.
Nothing for me is changing. We still go to England to buy sausages, bacon, also the beans for the breakfast.
Baked beans.
And also, of course, marmalade.
You like marmalade?
I love marmalade, really. So that's, for me, it's the same. You know that in Dover there are white cliffs. There are white cliffs also in Calais. That means that very, very long ago, we were the same country. And then came the first Brexit. You left us and you became an island. So now it's the second Brexit. I think you will still have a European feeling.
Calais is filled with reminders of the close relationship this part of France has had with Britain. British kings and princes actually ruled over Calais for a couple of centuries. There's a Tudor church in the middle of town, and more recent constructions, like the hypermarkets catering for British shoppers who come here to stock up on cheap alcohol and cigarettes. Perhaps more surprising, though, is that the local Calais food speciality is something brought here by the British, as a local tour guide, Alain Lenain, took great delight in explaining to me.
What is this before us? Well, it's called a Welsh. Originally, it's a Welsh rarebit that we've renamed Welsh for short because in France, it's very difficult for us to say rarebit, rarebit. It's actually cheddar cheese, which has been melted but mixed with local beer, toasted bread with ham.
Well, let me try this now. That is very good, I have to say. And okay, we've got this culinary link, but tell me, the British, are we Europeans in a meaningful sense?
The UK has always been involved with Europe. The Norman conquest of 1066, Europe came to Britain.
And then we came to Calais. We ruled over this part of France for a while.
Quite right, but I do not see the British as European as the Belgians, the Dutch or the others, because the British people that I meet do not come over as Europeans. They see themselves as something different.
There have been some French politicians and indeed other EU politicians who said they don't think this is the end of it, that Britain might rejoin the EU one day. Let me ask you, do you think this is adieu or au revoir?
I'd say it's probably cheerio. See you soon.
Soon?
Soon. I hope that you wish to come back. It's not just trade, economic exchanges, it's about where does your heart belong? It's in Europe, it's not in Asia, it's not in the States. Be true Europeans. It's not difficult. You're there already.
Calais tour guide Alain Lenain ending Paul Moss's Brexit day out on a ferry. Just a couple of minutes until we say cheerio to the European Union. Let's cross back to Parliament Square in Westminster. And a last word from Helena Wilkinson. Helena.
Well, James, thousands of people packed here into Parliament Square. They've come from all across the country, many draped in Union Jack flags, just as many waving huge flags in the air to mark this moment. Now, the crowds who are Brexit supporters, many have been here for hours. The excitement has been building for the last couple of hours, and there were huge cheers in the last few minutes or so when the leader of the Brexit Party, Nigel Farage, he got on stage. He told the crowds that something remarkable is going to happen in the next few minutes. The crowds will shortly join together to count down to 11 o'clock, and whatever your thoughts about Brexit, what we're witnessing here in Parliament Square tonight is a real moment in history. James.
Helena Wilkinson there in Parliament Square. Our closing headlines tonight. The UK is just about to leave the EU, severing a bond dating back 47 years. Rallies for and against Brexit are taking place across the country. In a video address to the nation, the Prime Minister has described it as a moment of national renewal and change. EU leaders have said they want the best possible relationship with Britain, but it will never be as good as membership. That is the world tonight. This is James Kumarasamy. We're about to say goodbye as Britain says goodbye to the European Union. But do stay with us here on Radio 4 as we begin a new chapter of our national story in the company of some familiar voices, because the Brexit cast gang are back with a special live edition after the news. This will be for now from me and from everyone here on the programme. Good night and have a very peaceful weekend. Hello, I'm James Kumarasamy. Thank you for downloading the World Tonight podcast from the BBC with in-depth analysis and major breaking news from a global perspective. You can also find more BBC podcasts at bbc.co.uk/podcasts.